Hi, welcome to the National Critics' Choice Online News, and we have Chef Ed Baines with us for the Best of British 2014.
Hello.
And Chef, we're glad to have you on our show.
Yeah.
Please tell us, what's your secret of your success as a chef?
I think the essence is gaining as much knowledge as I possibly could in the earlier parts of my career. When I was a younger chef, I never really focused on financial gain. I always focused everything about gaining experience, trying to learn as much as I possibly could from really some of the best older chefs that were out there, being very focused in what I did. I was very determined, competitive, didn't want to fail. And I think you have to have that element in your personality that if someone lays a challenge down, you're prepared to take it. And also an element of being very obstinate and quite stubborn. If I'm told I cannot do something, I want to do it all the more. So, I think that evolved as I got older into ambition. And once I felt I was at a point in my career where I'd gathered a foundation of knowledge. As a cook, you never stop learning. As a chef, you never stop learning. As a manager, as a people's manager, the one thing you obviously acquire as you get older is the ability to delegate properly, and more of an ability to be able to bring in people to assist you without it clouding sort of issues like ego and self-belief that you can achieve everything, because of course you can't. But fundamentally, the thing that one really needs to create any form of success is hard work, focus, and the ability to say no sometimes as well in life.
Now, speaking about ability to say no in life, what was your driving force behind your ambition? What makes you want to pursue a life as a chef?
I think my driving force really was, again, goes back to my childhood. I think it was the influence my mother had on me, which was to never give up. And if you fail, you try again. If you fall over, you get up, you try again. And not to allow ego or pride to get in the way. It's okay not to achieve and succeed in everything you might pursue, but what's not okay is to give up and think, oh well, I'm not doing it then. And I think there was that element that very much from my mother. She comes from the Midlands of England, the middle part of England. It used to be an industrial part of England, very hard-working, working mentality. Her family were always incredibly hard-working people. And I think that one seed was installed in me as a child, which was to never give up, no matter what. You never, ever give up. You always, just keep going. And the other thing is to grasp at opportunity. So if someone asks you to do something or offers something, is to ensure that you can do it and to have enough control over your life and enough balance over your life that you can do all the things that come your way. And sometimes things are offered to you that you might think, well, I don't really want to do that, I'm a bit tired, or I want to do this, I want to do that. But from my perspective, if anything comes up that's new or is an opportunity, I'll always grab it, I'll always take it. And it's an experience, whether it be a good one or a bad one, it's always an experience.
Have you ever failed in life? Have you ever faced failure?
Yes.
As a chef?
Oh yeah.
Could you give us one example?
Oh yeah. I mean, you have to be prepared as a chef to face failure. I mean, I'm not only a chef, but I'm a businessman. So, over the years, I've had opportunities to open businesses, to run businesses, and I have to be completely honest. Not all of them have been successful. They've always been busy, but for different reasons. Whether I've got involved with properties where the leases are too high. I've got involved in situations where over a number of years individuals have taken advantage of the situation and it's been no longer financially worth continuing. it hasn't. Certainly, my career has not been just a road of continual success. And to be honest, I think anyone that's achieved success, they've had elements of failure. You just don't hear about them because you move on very quickly. You accept failure. And I think, to some degree, the greatest form of success is to just keep going. Because you might have 6 different projects running, one of them will work. No one will remember the 5 that didn't. They won't. They're not interested. They'll move on from those. And then you focus on the one project that's really working, and that's what you put your time and energy into. So yeah, I've certainly come across failure, and I've certainly come across, from a personal perspective in life as well, some troubles, some difficult situations, things that haven't worked out for me. And I think it's really how you manage those situations, which is important. Not to presume that it's an easy road. You know, when you're a teenager, you think it's an easy road. It's just going to go from strength to strength. As you get older, most adults, you know, from their mid-30s onwards, recognise that failure is something that does happen in life. Hopefully not too often, but it's how you manage it. And I always think, you know, it's if you can react to success and failure in a similar way, that if you're successful, you don't bang the drum and boast about it. You enjoy it, but you also recognise what you need, and therefore you become involved, whether it be in charity, whether it be putting your energies to give to others that aren't as fortunate as yourself. That's important. And when you fail in something, you don't dwell on it. You don't dwell on it. You learn from it, and you always learn so much more from failure than you do success. Yeah. And I always think maybe in life there's that element where you never learn what to do in life, but you certainly do learn what not to do. And that's the key of avoiding those things and repeating mistakes. If you've made a mistake, fine, log it, don't repeat it.
Now, coming up next, Chef, what will be your, your favorite ingredients that you usually love to cook with every time you go to the kitchen? Do you have a list of ingredients that you usually use?
It's funny, I would say the cook's favorite ingredient. I mean, the most necessary ingredient, unfortunately, is salt. It's not very good for you, but you need it. Seafood, fish, seafood, without a shadow of a doubt. It's predominantly still a wild food. Of course, they do farm fish now and shellfish, but for me, I love the ocean, I love the sea, I love the clean, fresh taste and texture. To some degree, it's one of the most demanding things to cook well. The preparation of it, just the sweetness and the flavour. There's something so rewarding about cooking fish well, and it's light, and I like light food. And you know, it's a funny old thing, but that I'd say was my most important thing, is fish, really. As I've got older, certain things I find irresistible. Beef. Of course, whenever you put beef on a menu, especially over in the UK or in Northern Europe, it's always going to be a big seller. Beef, you know, something special about it. If it's reared well, if it's farmed well, if it's hung well, if it's cooked well, just incredible. You know, it can be memorable. A good piece of beef. Recently, I'm not as keen on pork. I used to eat a lot of pork. I'm not a great fan anymore. All the crackling and the crunchy, crispy bits and so on. For me, it's very rich, and I think definitely as you get older, your metabolism slows down, so you're more aware of. I like to eat a lot, and I do. So what I try to do is eat a lot of things that don't make me too fat.
What's the most challenging dish that you ever cooked so far, by far? Would it be dishes that's exotic or domestic?
I mean, I like to cook in a kind of deconstructed way. I don't try to create works of art on a plate, as in making shapes and forming things into. I think there's an evolution as a cook that as you get older, you don't tend to put 19 things on a plate and show off all your skills on one dish. What you try and do is use limited amount of ingredients that work together really well, and it's the execution of cooking, the actual cooking, that becomes a significant and important thing, because if you cook a piece of garlic beautifully in a certain way to acquire a certain type of taste, that will hit the palate and be memorable. And as a professional chef, what you're always trying to do is create a memorable meal. And I think everyone has eaten at some point in their life something that they'll never forget. And I think that was delicious. Whether it be chili crab or a beautifully cooked piece of beef or something that just does it. And that's what I try to achieve as a cook. So sometimes I'll put a dish down and it might only have 9, 10, 11 ingredients in there. It will have an element of simplicity on the plate, but it should taste delicious. The textures should be right, melt in the mouth, and it's the taste that one wants people to remember. You know, a lot of people can make food look nice on a plate, but then as you're tucking into it, is it bland? Does it have flavour? Is the texture lovely? Is all your gastric juices just running like, my God, I want more of this? And that's what excites me about cooking. You know, if I want to create a work of art, I'll get out, you know, the paint and an easel. What I try and do as a cook is something on the palate, because it's a bit like a racing car, in the sense that they always say with racing cars, if it looks good, it goes good. And with a plate of food, if it just looks right, and it could be something really simple, but if it looks right, and it's had that attention to detail, it usually tastes right.
What would be the 3 key advice for aspiring chefs, young chefs around the world, especially in Singapore, who could learn from you? What would be, as they start their career, what would be the 3 key things you would advise them?
What's so important as a young chef is, firstly, to not try to race to the top too quickly, because when you get there, there's an awful lot that you might have missed out along the way. Cooking is a bizarre and strange thing to do, because there is so much more than meets the eye. So much more. And the more and more and more you cook, the more you realise that it's not about what you do know, it's about what you don't know that becomes very relevant. Also, if you rush up the ladder very quickly as an older chef or as a more senior chef, not necessarily older, a lot more of your time is spent delegating and having to run other people. Therefore, less of your time you're enabling yourself to gain knowledge. And as a young chef, it's so important to learn all the basics properly, really, really well. And everything you do, you then have to think, how could I do this better? And to the point that I'm now in my sort of later 40s, let's say, I can look at a plate of food and I could virtually tell you the age of the person that had cooked that dish by being able to see how it was composed. And older cooks are always virtually cook in a more simple way and a more natural way, because they have more of an understanding of food. Never shy from hard work. Never really, if you get one day off a week, that's enough. Avoid drinking alcohol. It's an occupational hazard as a chef. You're around industry. You're around an industry, there's alcohol everywhere. There's bars, there's people offering you drinks or what have you. Within your professional environment, my advice is don't drink at all. Don't drink after work. Don't drink. It doesn't help you as a chef at all. Have a drink on your day off. And self-discipline. Have an element of self-discipline, because you need it. If you finish work at 11, 12 o'clock at night, you've got to be back there at 7, 8 in the morning. Go home, go to sleep. Don't go out, because you'll have a terrible day the next day.
One advice would you give for housewives? We have a question from one viewer who wants to know what advice would you give for housewives wanting to start and to learn how to cook? What are the key ingredients should they adopt from you?
I think if I was giving any advice to a housewife wanting to cook at home, or anyone that wants to cook at home, really, not necessarily a housewife, but anyone that thinks I love cooking at home and they're not experienced, is KISS, really. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Because the thing about cooking is you'll take on a recipe and it might be complex and it will funnel away from you. It becomes more and more and more complicated as you're cooking it. And what will happen if you haven't got the experience, it's the attention of detail will start to fall to pieces. And then you'll start to fall to pieces, and what you create will become a mess. So as you start to cook, you cook really, really simple things. It gives you the time and the energy to focus on the detail, to make them perfect. So even if it's something as simple as a lovely roast chicken, just a lovely roast chicken, beautiful thing to do, how can it be the best? The best roast chicken, you know? So everything you're focusing on, the oven temperature, how you're going to flavour your chicken, how you're going to enhance it, a marinade you might want to serve with it. What are you going to serve with it? Really simple. Home cooking is about putting wonderful dishes out on the centre of the table, just right in the middle of the table, for everyone to enjoy. Remove the sort of look what I've done element and just think, this is lovely, this is simple, this is a wonderful, straightforward dish. Because no matter how simple it is, the preparation of food, it always takes quite a long time, you know, peeling and picking and cutting, and it makes a lot of mess. So you keep it simple, and as you feel you've mastered the simple dishes, then you can start to move forward and forward and forward. Because it does become a little bit tricky when you start trying to get too clever too quickly. You ruin it, you know, and it's expensive. You buy all this food and you'll ruin it, and it won't taste very nice.
What's next for you, Chef Ed?
It's interesting. Quite often people ask me what's next for me as a chef, and
Even for Singapore as well.
yeah, I mean, obviously I'm here now with the British Club, and the general manager of the club saw a television programme that I'd made for 7 years back in the UK called Britain's Best Dish. I was invited onto that programme to act as a judge. I also wrote a book called Best of British. So I was invited to Singapore to cook a banquet dinner, which we did last Friday, which was fantastic, hugely successful, and really staple, good, honest British dishes. And then today we just cooked this wonderful ladies' lunch, and I did cooking demonstrations to highlight the style and the mythology. Nothing complex about what we were doing. We just focused on cooking properly and cooking well. It's been a fantastic trip here in Singapore. I've spent a week out here now. Ferociously hot, may I add, but really quite spectacular. The club's been wonderful. My approach for what's next is I've been invited to become an ambassador of the club, which I'd very much like to do, because I think there's certain things that we could certainly move forward with the club. Back in London now, really it's become a gastronomic city, and there's so much diversity in London. It's very competitive. Food now has become a very, very important part of Londoners' life, and London is very unique in Britain because it's a global city. It's not just a British capital, it's a global city, and it's hugely multicultural. So it's got influences from all over the world, and it's really going great guns now from a culinary perspective. But what that means is we've all got to be on our guard and doing a very good job. And from a British culinary perspective, to be able to become an ambassador within the club and also assist with the development of the culinary side of the club, I think would be a wonderful opportunity for me. I own a restaurant in London, which is very well known. I've had the restaurant for 16 years with my business partner. We're now thinking of developing our business. We don't really just want to develop it within the UK, because we see London as a unique market. So now we're developing our brand to go internationally. And so I've had a little look around Singapore. I think it would fit very well in Singapore because it's a seafood restaurant, firstly and foremost, and it also has a phenomenal atmosphere. It's very lively. And from what I've seen in Singapore, those two things would work very well here, because people like having fun. They certainly like having a jolly time. They like hospitality, they like service, and they love seafood. And they're mad about food, basically. So I think the ingredients of Randall and Auburn and what we do in London would work in any city that has a culinary drive. So whether that be New York, San Francisco, Istanbul, Singapore, Hong Kong, Shanghai as well, of course. I mean, you know, I know that our Chinese clients in London absolutely love what we do with our seafood. They love it, and you know, they come in and they eat plats of fruits de mer. And so for me now, it's looking at the company and the brand, Randall and Auburn, and taking it forward on an international stage, and that to me would be a wonderful thing, really to focus on for the next 20 years of my career.
Amazing. And what's your philosophy of food today? Good food. What's your philosophy now?
My philosophy of food is to keep it light, simple, and fresh. That's it.